Hi, I'm interested in the apartment you have listed for rent. Could you please give me some more details about it?
Sure thing. The owner's name is Mary, and it will be available for rent from June. Mary recently renovated the apartment by upgrading the kitchen cabinets and repainting the walls. Hence, the price increases from $11,000 to $13,000.
That's acceptable. Could you provide some insights into the apartment's amenities?
Absolutely. You will love the brand new lighting fixtures and carpeting. The apartment's flooring is made of wood, which gives a warm and cozy feeling.
That's great to hear. Are there any household appliances?
The landlord had plans to purchase a dishwasher, but there's not enough space for it in the apartment.
I see. How about laundry facilities? There's a laundry machine available on the premises, but you would need to use a card to operate it. Okay, that's good to know. Is there a stove in the kitchen?
Yes, definitely. There is an electric cooker in the apartment, and the landlord permits its use on the balcony, where you can soak up some fresh air.
Perfect. I often cycle to work. I want to know whether the building has relevant facilities for parking.
Unfortunately, there's no dedicated locker to store a bike. However, there are racks available that you can use to keep it safe.
All right. That's not a problem. Is there any video surveillance in the building?
I'm not entirely sure about that, but I can speak with the landlord and gather more details. Nevertheless, the building has full-time security, which should provide peace of mind.
Okay, that's good to know. Are there any amenities available in the building?
Yes, the apartment building provides free access to swimming pool classes, which is a fantastic addition to the apartment.
That sounds great. Can I see the apartment in person?
Certainly. The owner is available on Monday, but only in the evening. How about 7:40 p.m.? Would that work for you?
That's perfect. Where should we meet?
The address is 236 Carriage Road, Kerridge. We can meet you at the entrance.
Thanks for that. How do I get there?
You can take the bus west to the intersection until you spot a red brick multi-story building. That is the library. Then you walk down the street until you reach the park, and the apartment building is located right across from it.
Part 2.
Okay,
You'll hear
I
an
see.
HR representative of Earn and Learn giving some information about her company. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 16. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 16.
Welcome to all of you. Can everybody see and hear me? Good. I'm Sarah Connor, an HR representative of Earn and Learn. I have been asked today to talk to you about our company. So for those of you who don't know very much about the company, let me start by giving you some basic information about it. Earn and Learn started nearly 20 years ago. It is not a charity but a for-profit company that enables promising entrepreneurs to make money while traveling. During the past 10 years, it has grown rapidly and has gained great influence in most countries of the world. We have a partnership with the school and take a large number of recent graduates from the business school. So if you are a recent graduate, I'd say you can consider applying to our company. Before your application, you might be curious about what sort of places you could go to. There are 4 main locations, but you also have the freedom to submit a different location, and if they can make the necessary arrangements, you can go. The first country, Earn and Learn. And Learn established locations was the U.S., where you may choose from multiple locations as long as you can commit to their more rigid schedule of August to December. Also, you could do the Australia internship. That one is really cool. You work at a wildlife shelter and learn about the business practices of nonprofit organizations. You do have to be willing to commit 8 months for that one, though. Perhaps that's a long time to be so far away, but I would say it is really an amazing opportunity. I don't know whether some of you are in decent physical shape. If so, the South Africa internship is another exciting one. You learn a lot about sustainable farming, but you would be doing some of the manual labor involved in maintaining a farm. Indeed, it's hard work, but I think you would definitely be able to do it. It may be wise to wait until after their summer is over, so it's not so terribly hot. In addition, there is a most recently established location in India. This one gives you more of a study abroad feel, given that they arrange a host family for you to stay with. In the other locations, you live in an apartment with other interns, so this is definitely a unique experience.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 17 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 17 to 20.
Regardless of where you go, at the end of the program, you get a global traveling certificate as long as you can explain your experience. You can provide a written log of what you did. I recommend writing journal or blog entries about what you do every day or a weekly summary of each day. Of course, you don't have to write up a formal report or anything like that, and you need to apply for it once you prepare to return. Some students may want to know whether this is a paid internship. Actually, you have to pay for the flight there yourself, but you have the opportunity to create your own small business, which could earn you money if it's successful, so basically, you pay for it all up front. But when you're there, you can find ways to make money. That is to say, you pay for 2/3 of the cost up front as a deposit and then give the final installment 1 month prior to your return. Finally, I have to remind you that you need a health check before you go to make sure you're not going to spread any communicable diseases. In addition, before you go, you don't have to attend any meetings or workshops. You'll meet everyone you'll be working with once you get there. Okay, well, that's all I've time for today. Thanks for listening, and I'm happy to take any questions if you have them.
That is the end of part 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers. You will hear a conversation between 2 students discussing about their research project. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 26. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
Hey Matilda, have you done any further work on the research project? I spoke to the professor yesterday and he's had some interesting results so far.
Yes, I've been analyzing the data we've received, and the results are similar to those the professor talked about. The recording devices have been spread out throughout the faculty building, and we're able to get results from many sources.
That's interesting, but there are some ethical issues that need to be addressed in relation to this. The school has very high standards regarding this, and it's important we take the issue seriously.
Right, are there any major problems that we should be worried about that might affect the integrity of the research? If so, we need to address them straight away.
Well, the main issue is about the consensus of the children involved in the study. It isn't clear whether they've all agreed to take part in the experiments. The professor was filming his daughter in secret, and she was unaware of this. Now his daughter is only 3 years old, so it might be difficult getting someone so young to understand what they're taking part in. But we need to take it seriously. As I said, we don't want to be accused of being unethical.
I see. Yes, you're right. I suggest we'd better develop a consent form for parents to fill in.
I think that's the best way to go about it. Now, I know there were some other issues that were raised. Can you please explain to me what some parents said? I'm not entirely sure I followed.
Yes, some expressed a concern that speaking to their children with less complex language structures would negatively affect their child's language development, but that isn't the case. Parents have no need to worry in that regard, as the language acquisition process is in no way affected by this sort of interaction.
Okay, well, that's fairly obvious from the results, I suppose.
The tools we use to collect data have been refined and broadly applied in multiple research areas.
Yes, I spoke to the professor about that yesterday.
Right, anyway, I've already made a start on writing up some of the research results, and one of the more fascinating findings relates to the way in which language is acquired. Most people begin studying a language at its roots and try to understand the basis of the individual words. For me, though, I find it more beneficial to acquire individual vocabulary items and language structures rather than understanding the fundamentals.
I think that's an approach preferred by many linguistics experts, especially those who work in education and language training. It's important to make a distinction between mastering a new language and simply being able to use it for conversational purposes. As for myself, the process of language use is to try out new learning processes, without fear of making mistakes. Of course, in some cultures and learning environments, making mistakes is not acceptable, and this is a real drawback for the students. I agree with most of that, especially the idea that making mistakes is a necessary part of the learning process.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 27 to 30.
Urbanization is the increase over time in the population of cities in relation to the region's rural population. It has been the trend of many countries since the Industrial Revolution and continuing through the 20th century. The cities in the world account for only 3% of the land area on Earth. In the next few decades, the cities will continue to grow, and more people will be living in urban areas. Urbanization creates enormous environmental, social, and economic changes, which provide an opportunity for sustainability. According to statistics, an average person in the city consumes far less carbon than someone in the countryside, about 40% to 50% less. In some countries, the gradual recovery of lost forests has been observed when people move out of certain areas. These are good examples of the environmental benefits of urbanization. Even though accelerated urbanization creates an ever-increasing demand for expansion of infrastructure and services, cities are more energy efficient compared to the rural areas. Facilities in the city are very concentrated, whereas they are scattered in the countryside, which causes a lot of waste. What's more, people who live in the countryside usually have to travel very far to buy groceries, visit friends, or go to work, so they rely a lot on cars to get around. They don't have much of a choice. City residents can have access to public transport, such as buses or trains, because the infrastructure is much more developed in cities. Therefore, life can be more convenient. In many cities, a well-established recycling system ensures that rubbish is disposed of properly and can be reused if it holds value. However, in numerous rural areas, there is a lack of sufficient waste management infrastructure and personnel to facilitate this type of waste sorting. As a result, when driving through rural regions, it is common to witness an abundance of plastic bags and waste paper scattered along the roads. The life of women in the city can be very different from those who live in the country. The different living conditions have a great impact on their lifestyle. For one thing, women in the city get married at a relatively later age than their country counterparts mainly because they are busy in the career. For another, while most women in the country are full-time housewives, city women have to work hard in the competitive work environment in order to gain more promotion in their work. However, a higher concentration of people within a region can cause some troubles, such as shortages of important resources like food and water. And when people move from the countryside to the city, they have to work hard to make ends meet and support their life in a more fast-paced and expensive setting. They are busy trying to adapt to the city life. As a result, their rural culture is lost as they have no time for the traditional skills and they don't even have a chance to use their dialect. Moreover, the greater occurrence of crimes in urbanized areas can be attributed to the increased availability of goods and heightened awareness of income inequality between the affluent and the less privileged. In contrast, life in the countryside remains comparatively peaceful, allowing residents to even leave their doors open at night without fear of criminal activities. Living in urban areas, particularly in low and middle-income countries, poses the disadvantage of poorer air quality caused by pollution, resulting in various health issues like asthma. Due to the larger population in cities, there is a subsequent increase in consumption, resulting in expanded business opportunities. The heightened consumption in urban settings plays a significant role in driving personal wealth accumulation. In some parts of the world, there is a growing trend of people choosing to leave the city and relocate to the countryside. This shift is primarily attributed to the stress associated with work and urban living, as well as the issue of traffic congestion. Consequently, many individuals choose to opt for a more peaceful lifestyle in rural areas. People have their preferences in terms of lifestyle,